Well, we're back looking at the second stage of the painting that we're doing today, which is the city of Prague, specifically the Charles Bridge, with a backdrop of passing clouds. Rain perhaps is leaving the city, typical this time of year, spring rain. I start by applying yellow ochre, burnt sienna, to the entire city behind the bridge and even below the first two openings in the bridge. This area that I painted is wet, and I'm starting to add some variety to the colors. At the moment, adding a little blue and black to the burnt sienna yellow ochre mixture that I had before. I'm facing the rooftops now and adding a bit more red while the paint is wet, so that the rooftop kind of blends into the building. I want this to have a very solid feel, not necessarily individual building against individual building, but more like one big area of buildings that are joined by a common tone, a common color, in this case yellow ochre, burnt sienna. And I'm putting now some green onto the rooftops, typical of the city of Prague, where there's a lot of beautiful spires and old rooftops that have aged by oxidizing, using a cobalt turquoise to get a green roof. And I'll adjust this some more, place the buildings behind the black tower, the big black tower that's our main focus. And I want to have the city recede, so I'm adding a little more water to the right-hand side so that it fades away as it moves into the distance. To push this all back, I'm now adding the big black bridge with a mixture of neutral tint and burnt sienna, using a small brush to get some exacting details up at the top. It's a very distinctive, iconic building, so I want to have it read on first glance that this is indeed the black gate to the Charles Bridge. And as I come down, I'm going to be carrying this same color with a little bit more water and burnt sienna into the bridge itself. They're made out of the same stone, they have a similar appearance. I want that to be clear as I'm painting it. You notice that I'm leaving a little white space up at the top, on top of the bridge. This is to maybe give a definition of sorts, but it also could be showing us that the top surface is wet, shining. Anyway, I find it to be a useful technique, is to leave a little bit of white on some of the edges that face the sky. I'm continuing this bridge to the right, burnt sienna, a little bit of neutral tint. If I get some cauliflowers or some streaks, I'm happy, because this bridge is aged that way through hundreds and hundreds of years. The rain has fallen on the bridge, all kinds of weather, and it's given this bridge a quality of being aged. And I find that the streaky nature of watercolor, the washes applied onto the bridge, exaggerate this quality. Moving over to the foliage, I'm using a mixture of cadmium yellow light and neutral tint. This gives me a kind of lime green, a spring green is actually how I think of it. I paint the whole thing as a mass, and then while it's wet, I'll add a darker version of that same green to give me a feeling of the shadows, the shadow play upon the foliage. The second tower, which is even more unusual than the black tower that's in front of it, it has 3 spires all in one tower of copper against the sky. It's quite dramatic. It's a little more distant, so I'm placing it a little lower, and the color is not as strong. However, it's going to appear with some drama against those white clouds. Adding a few touches to the city. I'll save adding the details of windows and eaves until it's dried fully. And in the next stage we're going to carry our reflections down to the water.